let me just give a brief bio about our speaker. So Prof. Muhammad Aminul Islam is currently working as a professor in the finance division of the Faculty of Applied and Human Sciences at University Malaysia Perlis. So he has received his first bachelor degree from the International Islamic University Malaya, and then the MBA and Doctor of Philosophy from University Science Malaysia. Besides that, he has also an advanced diploma in teaching in higher education from the Nottingham Trent University. So I believe that people who have this diploma in teaching, so their method in disseminating knowledge will be different from the other academic staff. That's what my understanding is, because they always think that the students must understand. It's not that how much they teach, but the ability of the participants to understand the subject matter that is being taught. So I don't think I have to read further on the different awards. It will be too lengthy, because the main aim of today's session is for us to really understand how we can actually develop a good model that comprises moderation and mediation variables. So this is important because we do not want students, especially students, to just plug in variables assuming that they are mediators and assuming that they are moderators. So that is not the right way of doing things. So because of this, we have invited someone who has got vast knowledge about research to actually teach us the simple way, okay, the easiest way on how we can develop a framework that comprises not only on independent variable and dependent variable, but we also have these moderating variables as well as mediating variables. So this is important because remember, in any study, if the foundation is weak, so whatever analysis that you do will be useless, because what is important is to have a strong foundation based on theory, based on models. So without further ado, I would like to pass the session to Prof. Muhammad Aminul.
Thank you very much, Prof. Jeffrey Lawrence, for the introduction. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Puan Nuriati Sanjat, who has been contacting me since, I think, more than 3 months. And finally, we agreed on a date and time. And as Prof. Lawrence earlier said, this is my first appearance at UPM as a speaker. But there have been many webinars where the UPM Student Association were joint organizers. The webinars organized by UTM, UTHM, a few webinars, the Student Association joined as a co-organizer of those webinars. All right. Before I share the slide, I think Prof. Lawrence has given a very good introduction of the topic. When we attend final viva voce session or proposal defense session, many a time we get the students talking about moderating and mediating without understanding why and when a moderating or mediating variable should be introduced. And even when a student first come to see us, and when we ask the student, what would you like to do? And the students would be just telling us, you know, I have been working with this sector and I have experience in this, so I want to do a research on it. Then we tell the student that's not the way of looking into beginning the research. Of course, when we mingle around with people, live in the society, we see certain problems exist. And then we have to consult the literature and look into the theory that can explain some phenomena that we experience, okay? I see in many cases, when I go as external examiner especially, students are very confused. And a lot of misunderstandings on moderation and mediation. A variable can be introduced as a moderating is being introduced and mediating, or a variable can be introduced and mediating is introduced as moderating. And also when we introduce mediating, there are a number of ways of introducing mediating is there, like partial mediation, serial mediation, full mediation. There are many different parallel mediation. So I will introduce and explain all those issues related to mediation and moderation. as well as on advanced research topics like mediated moderation and moderated mediation. So that one also will be discussed towards the end of the session. All right. So with this introduction, let me share my slide and I will start the presentation. All right. If you can see my slide, Prof, can my slide be seen? Is it visible?
Yeah, it is visible. It is visible.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So those of you know me, I do have a YouTube channel dedicated for researchers worldwide, platform for research and development. And I have up to date about 115 videos, and most videos are research methodology related videos. And up to now, I think I have about 9,500 subscribers, and most of them are PhD students watching the videos and all that. All right. So those of you who are not familiar with me, you may would like to look into all right and explore the YouTube channel that is there for you. The slides that I'm going to use later, I will share with EPM. And those of you who have registered for this webinar, you can get the slides from them, okay? Now, let me start with research definition. I do not want to spend too much time on it, but let me browse through a bit. Research is often misunderstood by many students, okay? Research is an organized, objective, and systematic process to study a particular problem that needs a solution. And I put in red marks. Research starts with a problem. If you do not have a problem that is a concern in an industry, in a society, in a country, or the world, then you should not be doing a research. Research is not something very easy thing to do. It requires a lot of time, effort, money, and many other things. So research is only undertaken with an identified and defined research problem. Okay. Now, when we live in this society, we mingle around people, we network and collaborate with people, we see problems are there. But the attitude of people when we encounter the problem are different. Most of us, when we see a problem, what we do, we ignore them. This is very normal. Majority of us, we see a problem affecting the society of people, we will just ignore them. If we are a bit better than that group of people, possibly we may just talk about it. We come back to the office, we go back home, and we tell our wife or kids, you know, that's what I have seen. Somehow it's affecting people. We come back to the office and we share things happening in the society with the colleagues. But that's not the attitude of a researcher. Researcher, we want people to think like researcher. If you want to think like researcher, then definitely when you see a problem, you'll be thinking of what can we do to find a solution to it. But then in business and social science research, any problem that we look around, most of it are extensively researched. Then the next question would be, if the solutions are there, are those solutions enough, adequate to solve the problem? Because the society keeps changing because of hyper-turbulent environment, right? The environment keeps changing. The way we live, the way we talk, the way we mingle around with people in the society, the way we work, everything keeps changing. The eating habits, the sleeping habit, you know, the lifestyle keeps changing. So the solution that we have on a problem may not be adequate, may not be enough to solve it at this moment. And that requires a new research. Okay, so first of all, that is the point that I would like to make for the participants. You have to develop an attitude of thinking like a researcher. You have to be an inquisitive person, being inquisitive. Anything we see, we cannot take it granted. We have to start questioning. Why is that happening? When is that happening? Where is that happening? No, it's a problem. And what can you do to solve the problem? Okay. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind to become a researcher. All right. Now, when it comes to research, there are certain components are there. It starts with research problem, of course. And to understand the research problem, to find out what have been done before, we have to definitely search for literature. We have to review the literature. And by reviewing literature, we should be able to identify the variables, the related theories, the assumptions, all that. And based on that, we'll develop a theoretical framework. So that is the topic for today. But again, my focus will be more on mediation, moderation, but still I will start from the scratch. Okay, I will have a simple framework, then I will move into moderation and mediation. But please keep in mind, if we do a good job in identification and definition of the problem, and then we do a good literature review by identifying the right theory and right literature, then we should be able to develop a good literature, theoretical framework. So the theoretical framework is much dependent on the literature review and identification and definition of research problem. So before we develop the theoretical framework, there are certain prerequisites that we have to go through. And then once the theoretical framework is developed, the subsequent stages will be completely dependent on the theoretical framework that we have developed. We construct hypotheses based on theoretical framework. We develop question based on identified variable. Then we collect data based on the questionnaire we design. So everything is dependent on the theoretical framework. That's how important the theoretical framework is for a research. Okay, let me move on. The theory. Theory is a Greek word, comes from theorem. It means proposition to be proved. Every theory that we read and is known to us, all theories are developed based on certain propositions. Some proposition being put forward, and then we collect data and we try to prove it. So theory essentially developed by qualitative research, and then to validate it, to verify it, to nullify it, we will do quantitative research. All right. So there are many definitions of theories out there. Even if you come down to the last one, it says it is a statement of relationship between two variables. So when you are developing a theoretical framework, that one you have to keep in mind, a framework that is supported by a theory. If it is a qualitative research, it is a conceptual framework because the framework is supported by concepts. So I will come it later. But if you're developing theoretical framework, because today we are talking mediation and moderation, is essentially part of theoretical framework. So it's a theoretical framework to be developed. It must be supported by a theory. And a theory is developed based on certain proposition that has to be understood. Now, when you look at students and they say that my theoretical framework is underpinned by or supported by these theories. And when you ask them about the theory, most of the students, majority of the students, I would say, cannot explain what is the theory all about. Because they just read the literature, they pick up a theory and just put it as supporting theory or underpinning theories. Okay, so we have to, by right, read and understand exactly what the theory is all about. What were the assumptions, proposition proposed before coming out with the theory? And that is very important because remember, when you develop a framework can be developed based on organizational theory, or a theoretical framework can be developed based on individual level theory. So whether your research problem is affecting individual or your research problem affecting the organization, that determines what kind of theory you're going to use. Is it going to be organizational level theory or it is going to be an individual level theory? That one you have to keep in mind because later in your unit of analysis, you have to take into consideration of what kind of theories you are using for your research. This one, I will leave it for your own reading as we'll be sharing the slides. These are the building blocks of a theory. A theory starts with ideas. Okay, so first the ideas. And the ideas could be absurd, may not be measurable, may not be even sometimes understandable, and may not be relevant to some extent. So what do you do when a theory is made as relevant, something understandable, that's what you call it a concept. The concept here cannot be measured. So what do you do? When you convert a concept into constructs, it becomes something measurable. Under the construct, we may have dimensions, and that's how we come out with the questionnaire with items. Some variable, you have 4 items, 5 items, because on the construct has certain dimensions. Okay? So when you have the constructs, we propose certain assumptions, relationship among the construct. Those become propositions, hypotheses. And when the hypotheses are accepted, approved, like propositions approved, it becomes a theory. Okay, so that's how the building blocks of a theory. It starts with ideas, then put to concept, and then construct propositions and become a theory. So this is what it is. I'm not going to read for you. This one, I'll leave it for your own reading. What is important here for us to understand is the constructs. Construct is something which is measurable. okay, which is measurable. So in our theoretical framework, we will have variables, independent variables, moderating variables, mediating variables, dependent variables, and many other variables also there I will introduce today. Those are variables, basically constructs that can be measured. So every variable can be measured, okay? So variable is basically the thing that varies. So when you have a variable, we design questionnaire, we give it to people, different people have different responses. So the responses varies, okay? And that's why you call it a variable, okay? So that's how we operationalize a variable. We have construct, then we'll have the operational definition, we find out the dimension, and then we will have items to measure the construct. So when you are designing a questionnaire for a variable, that one you have to keep in mind. You have the construct, you know exactly how can you construct, how can you measure it? And then you define operational definition. There are many different definitions of variables available in literature. One variable can be defined in many different ways. So you have to make an operational definition. What do you mean by this variable in your context of research? That is operational definition. Okay, usually we'll have this in chapter 3, research methodology chapter. And then the normal definition we'll have in chapter 1, definition of key terms. Okay, so that the differences are there. So here you are going to have your own definition in your context, research context. And we find out the dimension and develop questionnaire later on. Okay. There are many different kind of theories are there. It's starting from descriptive theory, grand theory, middle range theory, borrowed theory, shared theory, grounded theory. I am not going to explain this as I have explained many times in my webinars. Those of you are interested to learn more, you can watch some of the videos available in my YouTube channel. Okay, this part I will leave. But in case if you have a question, during the question answer session, you can raise and I will be happy to answer. Okay. Now, what is theoretical framework? Theoretical framework basically constructed with the support of a theory or support of few theories, okay? And it provides a theoretical code hanger, we say code hanger. So in a hanging the code, meaning it basically provides the scope of your research for your data analysis and interpretation of results. So theoretical framework basically gives you the boundary. It sets the boundary. You are not going to go beyond that, okay? So that is theoretical framework. And that's why I put the word code hanger. You are hanging the code. You are not going beyond that, okay? So that is one definition of theoretical framework. And if we put differently, theoretical framework is a structure that summarizes theories. Now, this one you have to keep in mind. Sometimes your theoretical framework can be constructed or developed with the support of one theory, possible. But if you are introducing mediating moderating, then it is quite impossible to find a theory that supports all independent variables together mediating and moderating. So in that case, you may have more than one theories. So the dominant theory would be underpinning theory, and the rest of the theories would be supporting theories. Okay, so that's what we will look at. When you develop a theoretical framework. But Swanson in 2013, she has developed in a way like it says a structure. Theoretical framework is a structure that can hold or support theory and theories. So meaning that any framework that we have basically hold by theories. That is basically a theoretical framework. And if you are doing a qualitative research, a framework that is held by a concept, supported by concept, that is conceptual framework, okay? So today's talk is more focused on quantitative research. So I'll not be focusing on qualitative parts. So conceptual framework I'll be avoiding in my discussion, okay? But later if you have question, I'll be available for you to answer on the qualitative research. There are some more definitions that there which I don't like to explain more. Type of variables. Okay, so we are moving into the topic now. The three types of variables that we have basically dichotomous, discrete, and continuous variable. Dichotomous variable are having when you have 2 dimensions, and you have discrete variable when you have more than 2 dimensions. Okay, and I've given an example there. Continuous variable could be like continuous, like age. You just keep it blank and people fill in 20, 30, 41, 50, 60, 70 continuous. Okay, temperature, degree, goes continuous. Or when we design a questionnaire to do a survey and like 5 items to measure a variable, when you convert into one, compete into one variable, it becomes also continuous even though we have 5 scale. Okay, because we have more than one. Now, this is more relevant for today's topic. let us understand this because I guess there'll be many students would be completely new in my webinars. And also students from EPM could be first time attending a conference on a topic, webinar on a topic on theoretical framework. So let me explain that. Dependent variable is the assumed effect of another variable. Okay, so sometimes the dependent variable is the problem itself. I wouldn't say sometime. Personally, I would say it's always the main problem, the theme of your research become dependent variable. That one has to be very clear. Okay, and that's where I get a problem with PhD students. When I ask students, say for example, a student doing a research on human resource management organization performance, and if I ask the student, what is your research all about? And the student will say human resource management practices, okay? But I then I would ask the student, what is your dependent variable? He say organization performance. Then I say, what is your thesis then all about? The student say human resource management practices. That are the issues, okay? So we have to understand it very clearly. Dependent variable is the problem itself, the theme of your research, and the issues that contribute to the problem, the issues that affect the problem, the issues that created the problem. Those issues become independent variable. Okay, I know many cases students will come and tell me, Prof, my supervisor always asks me, tell me the issues, tell me the issues. So of course you have to tell the issue, because when you have a problem, you have to tell what are the issues contributing to the problem. So this one got to be clear first of all, because when you will be writing your literature review, you will have your flow of writing. So you start with dependent variable, then independent, then mediating model, and there is a flow there. So it is very important for you to understand. Main problem, when you write research problem, also you'll be writing with the problem itself, then the issues contributing to the problem. So there's a flow there. So dependent variable itself, which is dependent on other factors. That's how we call it dependent variable. Okay, so the problem itself that you are focusing in your research. And the independent variable are the assumed causes to the problem. The issues affecting the problem are independent variable. And then independent and dependent. Business and social science, there's so many people doing research around the world. And we know we want the student to contribute something new in terms of knowledge. So if you research the area that you are taking into, considering in your PhD study, you'll find hundreds of research being done. So contribute new knowledge through independent variable is very tough. So what we do, we look for some intervening variable, mediating or moderating variable, and that could be our contribution, okay? So what we do, we extend a theory, we modify a theory, we verify a theory, nullify a theory, integrate theories. These are the ways we will contribute new knowledge, okay? So the next one is intervening variable. Anything in between dependent and independent, we call it intervening variable. Why we introduce intervening variable? To see whether the effect of independent to dependent can be strengthened or weakened. And that's why you introduce intervening variable. So the first intervening variable is known as moderating variable, okay? The moderating variable. So in a moderating variable, basically, this variable refers to variable that is strengthened. It either strengthen the relationship of independent-dependent, or it will weaken the relationship of independent and dependent, okay? So it's also known as change the direction of the relationship. When we introduce moderating, later I will talk about it. The hypothesis got to be straight, either positive or negative. Either the relationship of independent-dependent can be increased or decreased. It has to be clear-cut when we construct hypothesis for moderating variable, okay? Now, what about the mediating variable? Is basically we introduce when the relationship between independent and dependent is clearly established. Okay, then we introduce a mediating variable. All right, so later on I will also discuss a bit more detail afterwards. All right, so this is theoretical framework, basically is developed based on the literature review and theoretical support. That one you have to keep in mind. Okay, let me move into the first one, first theoretical framework. Can I go to the, okay. Am I still visible? Am I, right? Am I? I am, okay. So say for example, this is what we have. So, all right. Say for example, this is a framework. So we have three issues affecting
the problem. So here the problem is abuse of internet. And what is affecting? What are the factors affecting abuse of internet? I put 3, right? So this is your dependent variable. That is the main problem. And these are the issues that's affecting the dependent variable. How many hypotheses can we have? 3, huh? I don't waste time, so I will ask you a question later. So this is hypothesis 1. We are constructing, we are proposing that there's a relationship between attitude and internet abuse and so on. This is hypothesis 2, this is hypothesis 3. And hypothesis can be written in different ways. And I have given 3 ways of writing, example of writing hypothesis here. As we will be sharing the slide, you will later review it, okay? This is another example. I'm sorry, the earlier one, the one you see, definitely there is a theoretical support. This is supported by TPB, theory of planned behavior. So any framework you propose, there must be a support from a theory. If you do not get any theoretical support, there must be support from literature. Okay, so that has to be there. So we cannot simply just pick any variable and we put it as a variable. Okay, we cannot. Okay, there must be some citation and references in order to introduce it. Okay, this is another one, extended framework. You can see here the TAM items are there, like self-efficacy, perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use. This came from TAM, right? Technology acceptance model. And then you have 2 additional one. That could be also a theoretical framework. You have a support from a theory and you have extended variable taken from the literature. So you are now extending a theory, okay, and making a new framework. That is also a theoretical framework. How many hypotheses can we have here? 5, right? 5 independent going to dependent. So you have 5 hypotheses there. Now, independent variable is also known as predictor, stimulus, antecedent, and manipulated variable. Please remember, when you read paper, most of the time you see independent, dependent variable, but many a time you will find independent variable means as predictor, and dependent variable is meant as criterion variable. So that one you have to keep in mind, okay? Or even an outcome variable sometime, okay? So when you read paper, predictor, criterion. Predictor is independent variable, criterion variable is dependent variable. That one you have to keep in mind, okay? In many cases, antecedent variable is independent and outcome variable is dependent, but there are different definitions available. I will also talk about it later, okay? Now, let me touch a new thing. Probably many of you are not familiar with antecedent variable. I understand there are cases where supervisor will argue that independent is already antecedent. Why should you have another antecedent? In business and social science research, when we review literature, and we see the study being extensively done in the area, and there's no way you can contribute anything new. So we look for extension. So in that case, you may consider antecedent variable. Let me show you one. This one you have seen earlier. Okay? So you have seen it earlier from TPB. Then this framework is extended. So we have 3 groups of variables, which are known as antecedent variable. Okay? So like attitude towards internet use or abuse can be explained by usefulness, playfulness, ease of use, and compatibility. This is from TAM. Okay, and peer culture, supervisor culture, family culture, media, mass media, social exchange theory. And then also you have facility condition. Also you have number of theories there. So even the antecedent variable that I have on the 3 boxes, all are supported by theories. So here my underpinning theory is still TPB. And the antecedent variable supported by the theories are the supporting theories. Okay, that one you have to keep in mind. How many hypotheses can I have with this framework? I have 3 independent variables here. So I have 3 hypotheses. And then the first group of antecedent going to attitude, I have 4 hypotheses. Second group, 4 antecedent going to the independent, I have 4 hypotheses. Third group, I have 5 antecedent going to perceived behavior control, I have 5 hypotheses. Okay, so 5, 4, 4, 13 and 3, 16 hypotheses from this framework. Okay, certain cases you may have extension of a model with the help of antecedent possible. Okay, so this is one. Okay, let me move into the moderating to this topic, half of the topic, right? Moderating variable. As I said earlier, moderating variable is basically introduced when the relationship between independent and dependent are not consistent. That will have to keep in mind. Huh? So you say moderator specifies the condition under which a given effect occurs, as well as condition under which direction or strength in effect vary. Okay, so you are looking at dependent variable to independent variable and saying whether can we introduce in between intervening so that the effect of independent to dependent can be strengthened or can be weakened. Okay. Now, Barron and Kenny, known as the father of moderation and mediation, right? They propose certain prerequisites before we propose moderating variable. Okay. They say that a qualitative or quantitative, that affects the direction and or strength of a relationship between independent to predictor variable, dependent variable, right? Independent to predictor variable or criterion variable or dependent variable. But I put it precisely at the down at the red mark. So you can see here, mediator variables are typically introduced when there is an unexpectedly weak or inconsistent relationship between predictor and criterion variable. Predictor is independent, criterion is dependent variable. Am I saying this? No, I'm not saying this. This is by Barron and Kenny, huh? The people who introduced moderating, mediating variable, the groundbreaking paper they wrote, first time in the world. So that one is the most important takeaway from you for today's webinar. If you are introducing and moderating, you are introducing moderating because the relationship between independent and dependent is not strongly established, or the findings are inconsistent. Some findings say positive, some say negative, some say no effect, some say effect. That kind of inconsistent findings when there between independent and dependent, then you will introduce a moderating variable. Okay. Now, if you have a question later, please keep it in your mind. Later, I will handle the questions. Okay. So I have given some other prerequisites for you here from Hornbeck and others. I'm not going to go through that. This is how it is. So you have dependent and independent, right? So loyalty is dependent here, satisfaction is independent. So now you are looking at, say, for example, the findings by previous research. Based on the previous research, the effect of job satisfaction or loyalty is not established. Some research concluded there is a relationship. Some said no relationship. Some said positive relationship. Some say negative relationship. That kind of inconsistency in there, then we introduce image. Okay. There's another example here. Companies setting goals, setting difficult goals, we believe will help you to improve the performance. But again, that may not be the case. So if we look at the findings, some findings say it's true, some say it's not true. This hypothesis is accepted, some say not accepted. Okay. So what do? We introduce a moderating variable, task ability. If employees are given proper training, right, they can perform that, they have the ability, they have the capability to perform the task. The effect of setting difficult goals or performance would be strengthened. Okay, would be strengthened. That's why we introduce moderating variable. Now, when it comes to interaction, do I have to provide some kind of direction? That's what is very important here. Every moderating hypothesis must provide direction. When you hypothesize it, you are proposing something, then definitely the proposition should include whether it increases the relationship, strengthen the relationship, or weaken the relationship, positive relationship or negative moderation. It got to be precisely mentioned in the hypothesis statement itself if you're introducing moderation. Okay. Now, there are a few more explanation here, which some of the students may forget to look at. When you are running the analysis for moderation, you got to look at the beta coefficient, okay? Not only looking at whether, if you are running SPSS, you multiply dependent and independent, dependent, independent and moderating, and running again dependent. And when you are looking at significant or not, this is one we are looking at. We say there is a moderating effect. Other way also, beside looking at the p-value, whether it's significant or not, at 5% or 1%, we look at the p-value, the beta value. Beta value tells you the weight of relationship. So you got to look at beta value, which I put it in the yellow mark here for you to remember, okay? So this is one important area that many students will ignore. I mean, many supervisors will ignore. Besides looking at the significance level, you got to look at also the beta. If the beta value goes up, meaning the relationship is stronger. If the beta value goes down compared to the single model, then the relationship weaker. All right. So that one also you have to keep in mind. Now, so we said that conducting a model data analysis is quite a straightforward process. If you follow this way of doing it, right, we say create standardized values for independent and moderating variable. We know how to compute variable on that. And we have to run multiple linear regression. But again, multiple regression would not be enough. If you are running with SPSS, then you have to use stepwise regression or hierarchical regression. All right. In moderation, we'll have 3 steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Those of you are familiar. But if you are running PLS, it's very simple. Compared to SPSS, you just draw the lines and it gives you the results. Okay. So the moderation analysis can be performed by multiple regression analysis using SPSS, by AMOS, by SAS, and now Smart PLS, and of course, we have R and a few other softwares also can do it. Even Stata can also do moderating analysis in case you are doing financial modeling, okay, for economics and finance and accounting students. All right, this is something that I always propagate. This is a template that came out with, and I have copyrighted it under my name. This is a template. If you are looking at the knowledge contribution, this one you are getting from theory, okay? What are the issues? Like here, the problem is firm value. And he's looking at the issues like credit risk, liquidity risk, operation risk, solvency risk. These are the issues he looks at. And then after that, he combines with industrial issues. So now here you're looking at industrial or practical issues and looking at high not performing loans, here rookie liquidity and all that. Combining these two only, we propose the framework, okay? Now, the weakness of many PhD students that we see, they only look at literature review, they find out the literature gap, and they say, this is my research problem. This is literature gap is the research gap. So this is the research problem. Personally, I wouldn't accept that. Because when we summarize literature, identify the literature gap, then we have to collect some data and evidence from the industry where the problem is occurring. So you have to have some supported data and evidence from the industry, what is happening there, and combine it with the theoretical aspect. That makes your theoretical framework stronger, okay? And that's what I have shown earlier. You're looking at industrial issues, you're looking at theoretical issues, knowledge issues. You combine these two and propose your theoretical framework. You trust me, you will have confident mentality and you'll be strong when you defend your thesis during proposal defense and final viva voce, okay? Now, hypothesis statements are there for you how to write. I'm not going to read through that. This is another one, moderating variable, right? So you have 3 independent variable here and a dependent variable. And attitude is here as moderating, okay? So we are expecting the moderating variable to strengthen the relationship between independent and dependent. Now, I would like to ask someone, if someone can tell me how many hypotheses can we have from this framework? Can anyone tell me? Please switch on your microphone. Tell me how many hypotheses can I have from this framework?
6.
6. Okay. So 3 from independent and 3 moderating hypotheses. Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. So that's how we look at, right? So this is about moderation. At the beginning, I thought I will allow a few questions after finishing moderation, then I'll continue mediation. But I thought, let me finish it off, the session first. Keep the question written, and then later we will try to handle the questions that you have. Okay, I can see some of the questions in the chat box. We'll take it later and then we'll answer the questions, okay? So let me continue with mediation now. Is that okay, Prof. Moderator? Is that okay? Prof. Lawrence, can I continue with the mediating now?
No.
Sorry? I'm saying, should I continue? I continue with mediating, okay? So later I will take the questions for both together. All right. Now let us move into mediating variable. So we say that despite the extensive use of complex statistical modeling, okay, the quality of research project is largely determined by design decisions that are made before the analysis is done. Okay. So we are saying the conceptualization of mediation analysis requires forethought about the relationship between the independent, between the variable of interest and the theoretical relationship that we develop. So if you want to introduce a mediating, you have to even think before you develop it. Okay, so because you are doing literature review and you are looking at whether the relationship of independent and dependent, okay, are established or not. And then you'll be thinking like, should I introduce a mediating? Later, don't worry, I'll give you a simple example for you to understand, okay? Now, this is what Barron and Kenny says, okay? They say that a mediator specifies how, okay, and which, right, given the effect occurs, right? So it's basically Barron and Kenny given certain way of defining the mediative variable, okay? So it says that mediation is best done in the case of a strong relationship between predictor and criterion, between independent and dependent variable. Let me now differentiate it. Earlier, when I talk about moderation, and I highlighted in red by Barron and Kenny, and they said moderation is introduced when the relationship between independent and dependent are not established. Findings are inconsistent. Findings are inconsistent and contradictory. Then we introduce moderating. But mediating here, Barron and Kenny is saying mediating is introduced when the relationship is very strong, the relationship is established, relationships are consistent, the previous research's findings all are consistent and not contradictory. In that case, we introduce a mediating variable. Now, can we introduce a mediating variable just if I think of based on my work experience? No. Again, it has to be supported by literature review, okay? So, the Sadish and so on here, right, 1991, they said the independent variable causes the mediating, then causes the outcome. Later, I will draw and show you. So, they are saying that independent variable will affect the mediating will affect the dependent. But there could be some other way of mediation. We'll be looking at that today, okay? So, they said the critical prerequisite hereby is there must be a significant relationship between dependent and independent. That's the criteria that we got to remember. The relationship between dependent and independent established. No contradiction. Consistency of findings are there. That's why we introduce a mediating. That become our contribution to the existing body of knowledge. Okay? So these are the prerequisites given. We say that IV should affect the DV, IV affect the mediator, mediator affect the dependent, and then we can have another running of mediating in between the two. Okay, NSPSS PLS also help us with the tools to design the line, right? It helps us to design that proves whether there's a mediating or moderating or not, beside the statistical values that we get from running of statistical methods. Okay, so this is what Barron and Kenny proposes. Okay, so independent affecting mediator, mediating affecting dependent. So independent causes the mediator, mediator causes the dependent. That's what Barron and Kenny says. But later McKinnon has different idea that what earlier I have shown you. Okay, so we are going to look at that later. Okay, so here at this moment, based on Barron and Kenny, it says independent should affect the mediating, mediating should affect the dependent. That's what Barron and Kenny proposed in 1986. But then there are a lot of development and extension being done on it. We'll be looking at that later, okay? So this is something that Wilson look at, okay? So you are looking at independent to dependent because we are claiming that the relationship between independent and dependent is established, consistent. Then we propose the moderating, independent going to mediating, and mediating going to dependent, okay? Later, I will draw again variable framework and I will explain more. Do not worry. My objective today is, after going through this session, those of you who are attending the session, you should not have any confusion about mediating and moderating. Okay. So this is what you have. Earlier we have shown, so I'm not going to talk about it. Now, the question of partial and complete moderation. Okay. We are saying that partial moderation happens when the mediating variable replaces the relationship between X and Y, meaning that the strength between X and Y diminishes, but not to a full extent, okay? So this is partial mediation. Complete mediation happens when X no longer affect the Y. That one you have to be clear, understand. Okay, let me show you now. So when this happens, based on Baron and Kenny, this is a complete moderation, full mediation. This is a full mediation. So the effect of independent and dependent ceases. We are not going to look at that. How do we run it? We run it in SPSS with two-step modeling, stepwise regression. There will be two models. First model we run with independent and dependent. Second model we put independent together with mediator and we run it. Okay. So this is full mediation. This is partial mediation because we still test the effect on independent and dependent. Okay. Now, okay, this is a simple mediation you can look at. All right, what is the time now? 3:45. Okay. So now let us look at it. This is what usually works, like independent going to dependent and independent to the mediator, mediator going to dependent. This is simple mediation, okay? Let me give you an example. This is called serial mediation. Serial mediation. You can see here, independent going to mediator 1. Can you see that? And then it goes straight to dependent variable. And independent going to mediator 2, and it goes to dependent. And then even mediator going to mediator 2, going to dependent. This is what we call serial mediation. Can you test in SPSS? Difficult. Can you test in PLS? Definitely. PLS belongs to third generation software, and that's the beauty of PLS. We can do many complex methods, many analysis on many complex methods. This is what we call serial mediation. Okay, so let me go to the next. Keep in mind, if you have question later, I will clarify. Okay, this is called parallel mediation. You have an independent variable going to mediator 1, going to dependent, and your independent variable going to second mediator, going to dependent. And then you have hypotheses are there from independent to dependent, right? Because one of the conditions based on McKinson, independent must have relationship with the dependent. So that is what we call parallel mediation. You have two parallelly, we test two parallel mediation at the same time. And this test, why can we do? Smart PLS. It's very good to do it. Even R can now do it. Okay. So the difference between mediator and moderator basically is moderators are introduced when the relationship between independent and dependent are not consistent, are not established. Findings are somehow contradictory to some extent. Then we introduce moderator. And when the relationship between dependent and independent are established, consistent, no contradiction on the findings, we introduce mediator. But mediator could be partial, it could be parallel, or it could be serial mediation. There could be different kind of mediations are there, okay? I learned from some students, because I am connected to many universities in the world. I have 4 webinar groups, WhatsApp group, and I'm connected to 1,100 PhD students worldwide. And every day I get messages, queries, questions from students. I don't want to mention which country. There is a country in Asia. The students gave me the feedback. They said, the framework must be very complex. It must looks like very complex framework. Like if you have independent and dependent in between a moderator, not accepted. And you put independent, dependent in between, there's one mediating, not accepted. There must be some complex framework. It looks like complex, okay? And what even shocked me, when they propose the research, they have to propose the framework. And once the framework is proposed, it cannot be changed. So I was very surprised. Because to me, research is a very dynamic, sort of things that you do. So you should be allowed to change it based on the readings of latest literature and all that. Okay. So the moderator is introduced when the effect of independent and dependent is not established. It's not very strong, inconsistent, contradictory. And mediator is introduced when relationship between independent and dependent is truly established. Okay. There's no contradiction. Findings are very consistent, okay, from previous researches. This one I have given you for your own reading. When should you choose a moderation, or when should you choose a mediation, okay? or when should you choose moderated mediation or mediated moderation? Okay, so this one I will leave it to you for your own reading. Okay, this one I have done it already. Okay, this is the simple moderation, and then you have alternate way of looking at moderation, and this is a moderated mediation, and then alternate model of moderation. All right, so rather I will simplify it later to show you. Okay, all right, let us look at this one. With this framework, can anyone tell me how many moderating do we have here? How many mediating do we have here?
The moderator is one.
Okay.
I think attitude.
Very
And
good.
mediators are three. No.
Three?
Mediators.
Are you sure?
No.
Two mediator, Prof.
Two mediator. Beautiful.
Two.
Perceived benefit and perceived risks, right?
Yes.
So this is a okay. This one let me come after that. So these two are the mediating, and this is attitude is the moderating. So when you have two mediating going, is it a serial moderation or parallel moderation?
It's a parallel, Prof.
Beautiful. It's a parallel moderation. Very good. You are following me. Beautiful. Okay. Now, what happened now here? Look at the lower part of the framework. We have perceived trust going to perceived risks is going to behavioral intention. In between, we have a moderation. So what do you call that? First moderation, then mediation. What do you call it? We call it moderated mediation. First moderating, after that mediating. That's what we call moderated mediation. I'm sure you have seen many papers nowadays coming on moderated mediation or mediated moderation. All right. So this is what we call moderated mediation. Okay. Let me proceed to the next one. All right. If this one, can you tell me what is attitude? Attitude is doing what kind of test?
Moderator.
Moderator. But in a comprehensive way of looking at it, because you have perceived risks first as mediating, then we introduce a moderating.
Prof, it's mediated moderator.
Mediated moderation. Beautiful. Very good. So you're following me. Very good. I'm very happy that you can answer most of the complex question here. Very good. So you understood it. So you look at even mediated moderation and moderated mediation. Remember, in business and social science research, the student during the final viva was a proposal defense. The question that make them sweat, perspire. Which question? What is your new knowledge contribution? Okay. What is your new knowledge contribution? Because when you are drill on research problem and all that, you will fine tune it. When you go for the final viva, you are okay with that. But the question that makes you like cry sometime is what is your new knowledge contribution? Because PhD is an academic degree. So there must be some kind of new knowledge contribution. One simple piece of new knowledge contribution must be there. So when you find in area where you are doing research, hundreds of research have been done before. So how do you contribute something new? Okay. So that's why we are moving into like antecedent variable, moderated mediation, mediated moderation, parallel mediation, serial mediation, all those because we want to show something new. That's it. Okay. Nothing more than that. Okay. Nothing more than that. All right. And also, when you are defending your thesis in the final viva versus especially, okay, if we talk about a new variable, every variable is supposed to be supported by theories or must be supported by literature at least. So now you will be asking me the question, how can I introduce a new variable where everything must be supported by literature? If supported by literature, meaning it is already done. So how can I make it like new, you know? And that's why we are saying you can introduce mediation, moderation, mediated moderation, moderated mediation, just to find something new with the existing body of knowledge. Okay? All right. This is mediated moderation. We talked about it earlier, right? Now, this is a complex model, right? You have moderation and you have mediation together, right? Many models you can have that. Earlier also you have two. We look at mediated moderation, of course you have two, and mediated moderation, of course you have two. Even you can have a variable like that. You have a moderating variable. At the same time, we have parallel mediation. Okay. All right. These are some suggested reading for me by right. Any researcher in social science and business area, we must read Barron and Kenny, Peter and Heiss, as well as McKinnon. These are the write-ups, are must-read papers. It's available in the Google. You can just surf and get it, and it's a must-read for every student. You must read all the paper in full, okay? I've given you some more references available for you, all right? And lastly, I'll finish it first and now. When you find in a research area, looking at antecedent, mediating, moderating, moderated mediation, mediated moderation, you cannot find anything new even. Then you can extend your framework into outcome variable. There are many now study available, papers being published many. Even I have published few papers on antecedent before independent, outcome after dependent. We have also published few papers on it. So this is the framework earlier we have shown you, right? So I keep the same framework. So this is it. Okay, so some research. When you have a dependent variable that does not answer the question fully, that does not solve the problem completely, like this one. This one, you are looking at factors contributing to internet abuse. But if somebody asks you the question, so what? Internet is abuse. So what? I understand the factors contribute to internet abuse, but what are you contributing? So then I extend the research. I said if internet is abused, it will lead to some organizational outcomes like work inefficiency, integrity thefts. It will lead to some psychological outcomes like depression and loneliness. Okay, so now I'm making the study as complete. Dependent variable does not provide the true answer of research questions I have. Then I can extend the dependent variable into outcome variable. Okay, so how many outcome variables, sorry, hypothesis I can have here? Anyone?
Prof, can you ask again?
I'm saying how many outcome hypotheses may I propose based on this framework?
4, Prof?
I have 3 independent variable going to internet abuse, 3 hypotheses, right? 3. But internet abuse dependent variable is leading to certain outcomes. How many outcomes are there?
4, Prof. 2 of
4.
organizational.
So we can have 4 hypotheses here, okay? I have written it here for you. So you say internet abuse will lead to some organization outcomes. So it lead to work efficiency, it lead to security threats, and it also lead to some psychological outcomes. So you have 4 hypotheses here. So you may even introduce outcome variable. Now, let me tell you a story. In my case, my faculty, one of my students, he introduced antecedent and outcome variable. And the first proposal defense, he was failed. The examiner says he has to redefend the proposal. I told the students, okay, we accept it. And we came back and we saw the comments. We cannot find any comments why the student has to redefend. And we start, we keep looking at it and we cannot find any problem with that. That's okay. So we make certain improvements and wait for second time. The examiner say the student has to redefend again. I'm my only student, So I send a framework to Prof. Ramaya. I say, Prof. Ramaya, can you look at it and tell me, is there anything wrong? Then Prof. Ramaya said, no, Prof, nothing wrong. It's a very good framework. Then I send this framework to Prof. Mahazira, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of University of Malaysia, Terengganu at that time. Prof. Mahazira is a well-known marketing professor in Malaysia.
She is my supervisor.
Okay, she replied, the framework is just nice. I don't see any problem with it. Then we sent the framework to a marketing professor in Spain and we got feedback. So, but the examiners, they don't accept it, and they are not telling that they do not agree with the antecedent and outcome. For them, independent is antecedent and dependent is outcome. So how can you have antecedent before independent and outcome after dependent? So I call Prof. Ramaya. Prof. Ramaya, I'm having this kind of, it is a very delicate problem. He said, what can we do? Some people, they don't want to read the latest papers. They do not want to keep themselves updated. And they will keep, giving problem to the students. So what I did, I told the students, okay, we drop the antecedent and outcome, and let's go for the proposal defense. The panel accepted, no complaint. Okay, so with independent, dependent, they are okay. And when they see outcome and antecedent, they are not okay. So we have delicate problem like that in many cases. All right, so you have to be closely working with your supervisor, and you have to also understand the mentality of examiners in your own faculty before you propose a framework. Okay, do not go and introduce antecedents and outcome and say, oh, this is Prof. Aminul say, that's why I've introduced, and put yourself in the trouble. Academicians, sometimes many of us, sometimes we are really kind of funny people, everyone, we feel like I am the God of knowledge, I know everything, nobody knows nothing. What I know is the perfect one and others are wrong. So that creates a lot of problem. But being researcher, we should be always open to new things, and we got to review and read more and understand what are the things coming up as new, and we got to update ourselves. Okay, PhD students especially, you got to be very careful of updating yourself. The latest literature by attending conferences, seminars, webinars, and keep yourself updated of latest findings of research and all that. Okay. All right, with that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and then I will pass the session to Prof. Lawrence, and I will invite question and answers from the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Aminul, for the
Thank you, Dr.
insights on how we can actually. Thank you, Prof. Aminul, once again for your
Thank you,
input
Prof. Terima kasih.
on how to do the mediation and moderation framework. So I hope all the participants are able to understand in the simplest form what is meant by a moderating variable.
Thank you,
What is
Dr.
meant by what is meant a mediating variable, and so forth. So now I open for Q&A. Any questions you would like to pose to Prof. Aminul? This is your time now. Please go ahead.
I see some hands being raised. Arubani. Arubani, you may raise your question here, please.
Thank you. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Ibu Mariam, I saw you trying to ask question. Do you have a question, Ibu Mariam from Indonesia?
Enough, Prof. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Okay, Asif.
Yeah, Prof.
Asif, yes.
Prof, I'm Asif from UNISA. I would like to ask, I was in a seminar there, the organizer, the resource person was telling that moderation is usually not part of your model. You have to run separately. So it is always better to have the variables instead of constructs like gender, age. So dividing the data is much easier in that case. So it is recommended to have variables rather than to get constructs. So what is your say on this? And can we run moderation as we run the other, as a whole in MOS or PLS, in one click? But I don't know whether I'm able to ask the right questions.
No. I understood your question. I got it. If you are familiar with SPSS, living our life of doing analysis with SPSS, we run hierarchical regression. For mediation, you have to run two-step multiple regression. That's how you call hierarchical regression. Model 1 and model 2, they will be there. And then if you are running for moderation, there has to be 3 steps. First block will have independent. Second block will have moderating variable. Third block will have independent multiplied moderating. So that's why we call it hierarchical regression, 3-step multiple regression run during the SPSS time. SPSS was 2nd generation languages, okay, software. Now PLS and AMOS, definitely you can run in one model. I'm not sure why the presenter said he has to run separately, because when you run together, the results are there. Because in PLS, he's about to just draw the diagram, you just connect The results will be there with all the latest features and available in the statistics, including internal consistency, validity, everything is there. So I do not know why the person has said it has to run separately. I have never heard of it. I have been conducting workshop in spaces, I think more than 15 years, and have been, very familiar with PLAs. So definitely it can be run together. It doesn't have to be run separate. Now I tell you one case. I share with you one case. One of my PhD students, he has 2 dependent variable and 4 independent variable. And then he went for the final viva. He was okay with proposal defense pre-viva. Final viva time, one of the examiners said, in PLAs, you cannot run 2 dependent variable with independent at the same time. So as a supervisor, I cannot speak. So when I understand that he's wrong, so I sought permission from the chairman. Will you allow me to say a few things, So the chairman allowed me. I said, even in SPSAs, you can have 2 dependent variable, but you have to run twice. But PLS is 3rd generation software. Why can't we run together? He said, no, cannot be done. I said, it's very difficult to deal with, So I said, then you want a reference, somebody? I say, is it Prof. Ramaya's reference enough for you? He said, no, I don't want to believe Prof. Ramaya. I said, okay, whose reference do you want? He said he wants a reference from Professor Joseph here. I said, okay, I'll get it for you. So after the session, I came back to my office. I wrote to Prof. Joseph here. I say, Prof, this is what the situation I am in. So I need an email from you that I'm doing the right thing. So I explained the model and how I done. And he said, you have done exactly right what you have done. Okay. So with 2 dependent and independent, few independent can be run together in PLAs. Same goes to moderating and mediating. It can be run together in one model. Why you need to have different models? I do not know. I do not understand why is that said. Okay. All right, I think I have given enough answer, Brother Ashif. Prof. Lawrence, you are most welcome. You'd like to interrupt and you have to put your own opinion. You are most welcome. All
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you
any
so
other
much.
question? Okay,
I have-
welcome, Ashif.
The only thing which was coming in my mind was like in moderation, you have to divide the data like high or low, male or female. So you have different set of data.
Okay, I understand now. Okay, I understand it now. Okay. That kind of thing used to do when we use SPSS, my brother Ashif. But PLAs, we don't have to do that. Okay, PLAs, you don't have to do that. In SPSS, we need to create the syntax variable 011, sorry, 010, 01, then 101 and so on, like the syntax. We used to write the syntax using the programming language. And then we used to get dummy variable and we run that. That is for SPSS. But PLAs, you don't have to do that. Okay, Brother Asif? You can straight run it. There's no problem with that.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof.
Good evening,
Okay,
Prof.
next question.
Question?
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay, maybe we allow the sister first. Will you allow the sister first? Yes.
Sure, definitely.
Okay, the sister, yes.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Sir, the question which previous participant were asking that is moderating variable is only associated with the demographic variables of the population. I
Okay,
think.
the other part of the question. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
reminding.
Okay.
Definitely,
And then,
you can have demographic and you can have also construct the other independent other variables. Okay, you can have a variable whereby you collect data using questionnaire with many items, and then you compute them and make it a variable, and then you run moderating or you can run mediating. No problem with that. You can run with demographic. You can run with other created variable. No problem. Okay, sister.
okay. Okay, and the next question which I have for you is that you are saying that if the relationship between independent variable and dependent variable is a consistent, then the variable we are introduced must be as a mediating variable. And if the relationship between independent and dependent variable is not consistent, then we are introduced as a moderating variable.
I didn't say that. I said here at all. They said it.
They said it. Yes, yes, sir. Sure, sir. But sir, I have difficulty in my research that I am thinking that my variable is acting like both mediating as well as moderating. I can't decide whether it is a moderator or a mediator, because if I follow the conditions that you have said it, sorry, they have said, Baron and Kelly said it, that if the relationship is consistent, it is also working as a mediator, and it is also working as a moderator, because it
Okay.
also influence.
I give you a simple example. You will understand it. Husband
Yes,
and wife. Husband and wife. The
okay.
relationship legally established. Am I right? Legally established.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
But
sir.
sometime the relationship doesn't look very good for some reason. So
Yes, sir.
the kids, when the relation is very strong, the kids can play as moderating role. So they strengthen the relationship. If the kids do well in exam, kids are happy at home, kids are, healthy and playing and doing everything well, they become moderating. So the relationship become even stronger, the husband and wife. What
Yes, sir.
happens when the legal relationship of husband and wife for some reason not working well? In that situation, the kids may work as mediating. You know why? For example, there was one case. A kid came to someone and said, "Auntie, my mom and dad are not talking." I said, "How long?" 5 days. In 5 days, they're not talking. How do you live in the house? So how does your mom and dad talking? So say, my dad will tell me and I'll go and tell my mom. And mom will tell me something to tell to dad. I'll go and tell the dad and come back and tell the mom. So that is mediating. So that's how it is. A relationship between variables sometimes could be consistent, and suddenly there is a new finding. It is contrary. So you can use the same independent, dependent in between. You can have meditating, you can have moderating. Okay, keep that example of husband and wife. In the same relationship, sometimes you can introduce moderating, sometimes you can introduce mediating. Am I right, sister?
Yes, sir.
So your situation, if the relationship really established, then you should use mediating. But in
Yes, sir.
between, independent and mediating, you can use a moderating. Or in between mediating and dependent, you can use another moderating. That is okay. But you cannot introduce a moderating in between independent, dependent. Mediation, also moderation. No, it may not work that well. Then you are going against the principle of Baron and Kenny.
Okay.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank
the
you so
brother
much.
who was asking question earlier.
Good evening, Prof. Thanks
Good
for
evening.
your wonderful webinar, and thanks to UPM also. Prof, I came across one of the theses from the government university, whereby the framework have mediator and moderator of the same variable. For example, burnout. So the researcher created a framework where the mediator is also burnout, the moderator is also burnout. Is it possible to do that?
Okay, it's an interesting question. What you are saying is, independent to dependent, that relationship stays. Okay, but now the student is introducing burnout as mediating, and then also moderating.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. For that, you need to have specific literature support that burnout, somehow there are some studies shows burnout can be moderating. Some support. If somebody has studied and you have support for it, I have seen complex framework. I have shown you moderated mediation, mediated moderation, parallel mediation, partial, moderation. All that I have shown you. You can have that, but burnout, since I am not that well versed on the research of burnout, so I cannot make a conclusion on this, whether the burnout can be introduced and mediating at same time as moderating. If the student has introduced that, I believe there must be possible accepted reason, because the supervisors who have supervised him, they are all capable professors, okay? And those examiners are also capable academicians. So I cannot say they were wrong unless and until I have good evidence from literature and theory to prove they are wrong. So at this moment, I have to say that what they have done is correct since the thesis has been passed. Okay, student has got the degree. They must have some reason for them to introduce that. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Prof, another one more question is the selection of a mediation or moderator is based on a literature. So, could you give one example, a literature that supports? Because there's a confusion is either the selection is being supported by independent or dependent or both together.
Okay. Earlier, actually, I touched that. I said a theoretical framework could be developed with the support of one theory, but most of the cases is not possible when you introduce mediating and moderation, especially. So you can have more than one theory. So one theory, even your independent variable may not be supported by one individual theory. There could be few dimension, few independent variable taken from one theory and rest taken from another theory. And mediating supported by another theory. So it's not necessary to have one theory to support all variables. So one theory may support independent, other theory may support mediating. There's nothing wrong with that.
Very
Did I
clear,
answer,
Prof. Thank you.
Navarathan? Did I answer
Yes,
your question?
exactly,
Okay, thank
Prof.
you. So the dominating theory, the theory explained more, we'll call it underpinning theory. And the rest of the theories should be supporting theories.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. All
Prof,
right.
I have a
Jeffrey.
question.
Yes, please.
My name is Mansour from Nigeria.
All right.
Okay, Prof, based on one of your slides that you asked the audience, which shows attitude as a moderating variable, interacting with three independent variables, and someone responded that we are going to develop three hypotheses. My point of confusion is when I write Baron and Kenny's model, he shows that a moderating variable will have three arrows. The first one is from independent to dependent. The second one is the moderating to dependent. And the third arrow shows an interactive part between the moderating and the independent variable. So that's why
Understood your question. This sequence is done when you do the analysis of the data, but not in the framework. Okay. In the framework, and hypothesis will have like that, but when you run the data, you will have three, as I explained, hierarchical regression, you will have three steps there. So we put it independent to dependent, then moderating, then independent multiplied moderating. So he means when you do the analysis of data, you don't have to show it in the framework. Okay, brother?
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Welcome. Saidu, I think brother Saidu. Okay, later. Any other question?
Hello, Prof. I'm Sasi.
Yes. Hello,
Prof. Okay, I have a question. Okay, actually, as you mentioned
Where
just
do you
now.
come from, brother Edi? Where do you come from?
Okay, I'm from UUM.
Okay. Which country are you from?
I'm from Malaysia. So I've been,
okay. Because your name like Edi, Maru, Gujo, so I was thinking somebody from which country?
Oh no, I'm Sasi Kumar.
Okay. Okay. Please. Please continue.
Okay, so as Prof mentioned just now, for the mediator and moderator, we can use based on the literature review. Okay, however, for my research, I am using like in my context, the moderator and mediator haven't been tested before. Okay, because I am doing in algorithm human resource management.
Okay.
Okay, if in that case, actually I found a moderator. Okay, but when the prof said if it wasn't tested before,
Mr. Sashi, let me stop you. I understood your question.
yeah, bro.
I got your question. Let me answer that. Many students have raised this question before. When we say you must have support, doesn't mean that somebody has tested it before. If somebody had already tested as moderating, then you are not going to contribute anything new. What do we mean by literacy support is this. When you read a research paper, I will always tell the student, make sure when you read the research paper, it is a must for you to read suggestion for future research. That is a must read section of a research paper. The researcher will tell you that my research has certain constraints. I couldn't take certain factors into my framework. So he will recommend that these factors can be tested as moderator to increase or strengthen the relationship in the framework. Take that framework and run it, and if you get positive, there's a huge contribution. First time you are saying there is a moderating variable in between this relationship. So when I said you must have literacy support, doesn't mean that you have to have support that this variable has been tested as moderating. There's no need for that. Okay, Mr. Sashi, understood.
Okay, Prof. Understood. Thank
Yeah,
you,
right?
Prof.
Okay, welcome. Yes, next question, please. We have ample time to get questions from you. So you can raise question. Sorry. I think the internet problem. Brother Ibrahim cannot hear you. Huh? Brother Ibrahim cannot hear you. Cannot hear you. Okay. Okay, maybe we can get some other. Okay. Frederick, you have a question, Frederick?
No.
Okay. Well, let me look at the messages, and if there's no live question, let me look at the messages. Prof. Lawrence, is that okay? Can I go to the chat box?
Sir, can I ask one more question?
Okay, sure, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, you have said that if you are variable, if you are doing research and you introduce a new variable in your research as a mediator or a moderator that was not used in previous researches, and your research results prove that this is working as a mediator variable, it means that you have a huge contribution in a research. Hello?
I am saying that you are introducing a variable for the first time as moderating or mediating, which has been tested and moderating or mediating. Maybe that variable has been tested as independent. Maybe. Okay, but the first time you're introducing as mediating, moderating, that becomes huge contribution.
Yes, sir. Sir, but if according to Barron and Carey, your mediating variable is have relationship with the independent variable, but not directly. Independent variable is not directly affecting the mediator variable. In this situation, what should I do?
Okay, that's why I gave you two citations. One is Barron and Kenny, other one is McKinnon. Barron and Kenny for full moderation. That's what we do during the time of SPSS. We have independent going to mediating, going to dependent. That kind of variable we have before. But latest is McKinnon. McKinnon is latest. McKinnon says no. He agrees with Barron and Kenny that independent to mediating to dependent. But McKinnon has also added the hypothesis should be also tested for independent to dependent. So now it's up to you. Which one you want to accept? If you want to accept Barron and Kenny, then you have to be ready to defend yourself in that way, okay? So that the relationship between independent and dependent, you don't have to prove, okay? But I personally agree with McKinnon. The independent to dependent, then independent to moderate, mediating, and mediated to dependent, because this gives you more room, you know? And also quite flexibility, you know. If you are proposing independent to mediating to dependent, say for example, independent to mediating, you got effect, but mediating to dependent, no effect, then there's no mediation, and your whole research fail.
Okay. Yes,
and you will suffer tremendously, you know. But if you follow McKinnon, independent to dependent, independent to mediating, mediating to moderating, some hypothesis will be accepted. You are still safe to defend your thesis.
Okay.
Okay, so it's more flexible and it gives you more breath, you know, more breath.
More flexible approach.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prof, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Prof. Okay, Prof, I have the 6 independent variable, from there, I took the three independent variable from the theory, one main theory, and then the mediating variable also in the theory, and then the dependent variable also from the theory. But I took the three new variable, independent variable from other actually the article, and then that is related to my to my research. And then I took one moderator, and that is also the new moderator from I took in from the theory. So my question now, should I add, because I already add the two theories and my one underpinning theory is there. So for the moderator and other three independent variables, should I take another theory which is actually technology related? Because I took the moderator as a social media uses.
Well, if I understood your question correctly,
Yes.
you are saying you have 6 independent variables, 3 from the theories and 3 from literature.
Yes.
Okay, in that case, you have to develop your argument that you are proposing an extended framework from a theory. The theory has 3 dimensions, but you are adding on another 3. So you are extending an established model. You have to take that approach when you go and define your framework, okay? Otherwise, you will have a problem. So you are saying that you have taken 3 variables from an established theory, and now you are extending the theory by introducing another 3 dimension with it, okay? So that is okay, number 1. Number 2, I'm not sure why you have to introduce mediating and moderating together in between these two. Get ready to be shoot down during the final viva voce. Because if you are looking at McKinnon saying that independent-dependent relationship has to be established for mediating, and relationship is consistent for moderating. So I'm not sure whether can you introduce these two. Rather, we recommend if you introduce one moderating, then you can introduce in between there, like mediated moderation or moderated mediation. That's better, rather than introducing same independent mediating and also moderating. That one would be a bit questionable, and you have to get ready to have a sufficient good answer, acceptable answer for it.
Prof, my point is, because as you know that I took the 3 variable new, and these new are actually not related with my dependent variable, because here is some contradiction, because I'm a little bit confused. That's why I took the moderator here, because you also mentioned
you cannot say that 3 variable doesn't have any effect on dependent. Then why should you be proposing? Even though you are taking for literature, still support has to be there that those 3 variable has effect on independent, or that those 3 must have relationship with dependent. That one is a must. You have to have support for that.
The relation is there, but in my structure, in
Not
my
established.
MR,
okay. Let me propose this for your consideration. Those 3 variable, independent variable, relationship dependent established. For these 3, you propose mediating. Okay?
Yeah.
And those 3 are not established. For those 3, you propose moderating. Then it's okay.
Oh, that I can do, right? Okay. Okay, Prof.
All right. Thank you.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Welcome. I am basically telling based on Barron and Kenny and McKinson. I'm not saying anything from me. You have to understand that.
Okay.
My job is to make sure academically you are sound and you can defend it anywhere with confidence. That's my job. Okay. All right. The next question, please. Usuji Uchenna. Cannot hear you. Cannot hear you. Sorry. Cannot hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, let me look at the chat box. Let me start with the last question. Raj Kumar Mehta, you are saying, Prof, if there are 3 independent variables, one mediating, one dependent variable, how many research hypotheses would possible in this case? Okay, 3 independent to dependent, 3 hypotheses. And 1 mediating. Independent going to mediating will be 3.
And then mediating the dependent will be 1. So altogether 7 hypotheses. Is that clear, Mr. Raj Kumar? Clear? 3 independent to dependent, 3 hypotheses. 3 independent to mediating, 3 hypotheses. Mediating to dependent, 1 hypothesis. 6, 6, 1, 7 hypotheses. Okay, that's the answer of your question. In Heshe, your question is, Prof, I have a question. Is it possible to have 2 theories to support one relationship? Definitely there could be possible, because one dimension of a theory could be similar to other theory. Possible. No problem there. Can we say that can we say that moderating is positive in nature while mediation is negative? No, we cannot say that. Moderating can be positive, it can be negative. Sometimes we assume negative relationship with moderation. So moderation could be also negative. Okay, most of the time it's positive, but it could be negative. Okay, so we cannot say that. We cannot make a straightforward statement on that. Okay, we cannot. Okay, next question, Ibrahim. Can you use moderator to moderate IV and mediator at the same time? I have answered that question, okay? So I'm not going to answer that. Please give me the e-certificate. I cannot give you the e-certificate. He's the organizer, University Putra, Malaysia, okay? So you have to ask them. Okay, I have a question. If past researchers don't have moderator and mediator in a similar context, it still can be used, isn't it, by analyzing through PLS? If past researches based on independent are established, findings are consistent, a lot of research has been done, then you are not going to contribute anything new. And that's the reason you'll be contributing, introducing moderating and mediating. If you still want to keep independent, you can use PLS. Let me share this experience with you. Recently, we submitted a paper to a Q2 journal, and then it's accepted. One of the reviewer complained. He said, since you have just independent and dependent, you cannot use PLS. So we argue back. They know you can use PLS because basically you are doing the measurement model. After that, you are using the structural model. Even the independent dependent, still you have a structure. So he said you should contact Prof. Ringel from Germany, right? So I wrote an email to Prof. Ringel and asked him, Prof. Christian Ringel, asked him whether did you do the right thing. He said yes. Okay, so even though you have this independent dependent, you can use PLS. No problem with that. Okay. All right. You have to understand me. The answers I'm giving, I'm trying to give you with clear-cut references. I'm not saying of what I feel. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm giving you clear-cut references of what I'm saying. Okay. Dear Prof, thought moderation variable can have 2 hypotheses in direct and indirect. No, moderation usually always have direct relationship. We have to have a straight hypothesis on the relationship, either positive or negative. There's no indirect. Okay, next question. Azu, okay. Prof, I have one concern and question. You say that theoretical framework should be supported by theory, yes. So I want to find out when you introduce antecedent moderator mediator, should I variable is supported by theory? Yes. Anything we propose in a theory, it must be supported by theoretical framework. It must be supported by theory. If you don't have a support from theory, then you should have some literature review support. Support from literature review is also fine. Okay. But you cannot have a framework. All variables are not supported by theory. Everything from literature. Then you will be suffering during the viva voce session. Okay. You take certain variable from a theory and rest of the variable from literature, not supported by theory, is okay. If no support at all from theories, then this research is not quantitative research. We use quantitative research, we use deductive approach, remember? Deductive approach is when you have established theory. From there, we boil it down to variables and draw a framework. The deductive approach then leads to quantitative research. If there's no theory established, then it's a qualitative research. You should not be doing any quantitative research. Go back to qualitative research. And then you come out with a theory or propositions at least, okay? Those webinars I have conducted on qualitative research, some of the webinars I did on theoretical framework, conceptual framework. Those videos are available in my YouTube channel. You can listen to those. If you don't have established theory, then it's not quantitative research anymore. it is qualitative research. Qualitative researcher, they develop theory. And quantitative researcher like me, we test the theory. Okay? So no theoretical support, it is not quantitative research. Go to qualitative research. That answers the question whether you should be doing a qualitative research or you should be doing a quantitative research. Okay? All right, next question. In the model only add moderation variable, is it okay novelty? Yes, definitely. It is novel. You're contributing something new. Please share the slide. I will give it to EPM. You have to get from EPM, okay? When I get this video and I post it in my YouTube channel, under my YouTube channel video, I will put the slides there. And if you are connected to any of my webinar groups, I have 4 webinar groups. I will post the slides also in the webinar groups, okay? Based on the outcome framework, how can you differentiate dependent outcome? I have given clear explanation, Mr. Shah Kashim, Brother Shah Kashim. I said when you have a dependent variable, it does not give full answer. The dependent variable is like hanging. I have given an example of internet abuse. You have conducted a study on factor affecting internet abuse. And the people will ask you questions, so what? What happens if internet is abused? That kind of dependent variable, you need outcome variable. Okay, like when you are doing a study on behavioral study, so you look at purchase intention. So people will ask you, some people ask you, so what? You look at intention, but then it doesn't give me the answer. So then we proceed to actual buying behavior. So we extend from intention to actual buying. So that is outcome variable. Okay, so that kind of situation we introduce outcome variable. Okay. How to identify mediator when supposite? I have explained it. I'm not going to talk about it. What's the difference between antecedent and independent? Okay. When you are choosing an area of research where independent variables are well researched, all independent variables you want to identify have been researched. So there's nothing new to contribute. So what can you do? You can move into antecedent. Every variable may have antecedent variable. So, but again, those must be supported by theories. So when your research is extensively researched area, the research area is saturated, that nothing can be contributed in terms of independent variables. In that case, you might look for antecedent variable, okay? Unable to hear the voice. No, I think the voice is clear. Nobody has complained. Okay. Is there any latest question?
Prof, I have another question.
Let me answer the 2 questions again. Okay. Hi, Prof. PLS and Amos, which software is supposed to be used? Okay. If you are using questionnaire, survey approach, developing theoretical framework, I would prefer you to use PLS. But if you are using time series data, then I will advise you to use Amos. But Amos, again, is not that friendly. I even won't use Amos. Rather, I will use Stata for financial modeling, panel data approach, or even I use SPSS rather than Amos. Amos, to me, is a bit difficult, complex. But it up to you. If you are very good in it, you can use it. Okay. Can a variable serve both IV and MB? Definitely not. A variable cannot be independent and also become mediating. Impossible. Cannot be. The difference between Kenny and McKinnon, I think we have mentioned that, right? Bannon and Kenny, they said full mediation, independent causing the mediation, mediation causing the dependent. That is full moderation. That's Bannon and Kenny. But McKinnon is saying no. You have to test the relationship between independent and dependent first. And then after that, independent go to mediation, mediation go to dependent. Okay? When we have antecedent outcome, to treat independent variable as mediating, no, we will not treat dependent variable as mediating. We'll just say this is dependent, this is outcome variable, okay? I was external examiner of a student of Multimedia University last time. And the student has... can you please unmute your microphone, please? Okay. You have to unmute your microphone, please. Somebody, please. It's echoing. Mute us. Okay. So, McKinnon basically tells you that independent and dependent has to be treated first, and it promotes mediating going to dependent. Okay. Brother Shishi, I think your microphone is on. Can you please off for a while? Then Tak Hashim, can you please mute your microphone? Brother Shak Hashim. Sorry, some of you have switched on your microphone and it's creating problem. Can you please mute your microphone, please? Organizer, if somebody is there, okay, now it's okay. All right, thank you. Okay, let me look at the last question, then I will allow you for live question, okay? Minimum sample size for Smart PLS running successfully. Good question. Sample size determination. There are number of techniques available. You can follow Uma Sakaran table. If you don't want, you can go for or is Z power, right? I'm not following the Z power, sorry. You can use Z power. That would be most appropriate for PLS, Z power. Z power, how to calculate it is available in YouTube channel. And if you follow my video on sampling, I did also provide the way you should be doing it. Okay? So that is G power can be used. And there are also some other sample size calculator available that can be used also. Mr. Shishi, is there a question from you? Your microphone is on. Mr. Shishi, sorry, we cannot hear you somehow. Sorry, we can't hear you. Sorry. All right, I think I have given you the answer of the minimal sample size. I cannot tell you 100, 120, 300, I cannot. You have to follow certain accepted methods of calculating the sample size. Okay? Mr. Shishi, is there any question from you?
No. Sorry.
Oh, okay, Prof. Okay, Prof. Shishi there. Okay. Because your microphone is on, so then my talk become is echoing. All right, thank you, Prof. I didn't know it's Prof. Shishi there. Any other question? Okay, now it's open for you. I have answered most of the question from the chat box. Is there any other question? Please, you can raise now. Possibly the last question, I think. If no question, then I leave the station to Prof. Lawrence. So the session is yours, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Aminul, for a wonderful sharing for today's webinar. Perhaps I just would like to ask out of curiosity, because I've been conducting many studies for agencies, okay, that means putting knowledge into practice. But over the years, for the past 10 years, I've been getting many grants from different agencies. I hardly use any moderating and mediating variables. So I was thinking, what is the idea of we encouraging? Yeah, we know that it will be contributing to the body of knowledge, but eventually what we know is research should be, my belief is research should be contributing to the well-being of society. So when can we find an era whereby practitioners will be using moderating and mediating variables to actually address the problems that society face?
Let me unmute. It's a very good question. And that's the question, I think since 5 or 6 years, I started asking the PhD students during the Bible session. If I'm a chairman or internal, external examiner, even for my students, when I supervise, I always ask the student, what is your contribution to the society or the industry? And that is the reason I came out with a new template of research, plotting the research problem. And I said earlier that I have already copyrighted it. Aminul Islam's template for research problem. I've already, with my IPO, I have already copyrighted it. In that template, in the first template, I said, you take down all the issues from academic perspective. And next template, you take all the issues from the industry. So when you are developing the theoretical framework, you should be touching both. So when a student writing research problem without evidence data from industry, I won't accept it. I would say it is just a literature gap. It is not a research problem. You know, the gap that we identify, it's not a research gap. It is a literature gap. Research gap, when you combine literature gap with the support data evidence from the industry. And that's why now in chapter 5, in my YouTube channel, I have posted a video, how and what to write in the contributions of this study. And there I have clearly mentioned it. The first section, definitely theoretical contribution, because it's an academic degree. Next one is methodological. Third one, I say more important, contextual contribution or practical contribution or contribution to the industry. So the student should specifically recommend certain policy recommendation to the stakeholders on that premise of research. So if you talk about moderating, mediating, that may help the industry for social science business, I think would be a bit difficult. But introducing new variables as independent or antecedent or outcome, possibly more relevant to contribute to the industry. Like internet abuse, I've given an example. I have seen a lot of study doing on internet abuse, factor after the internet abuse. But the question is, what happens after the internet abuse? So that kind of things are many in our studies. Job satisfaction, millions of research being done worldwide, and still people are doing it because things are changing. Certain things satisfy you for some time, and after some time you're not more satisfied. So when you first time look for a job after degree, 3,000 salary, oh, lot of salary, you are very happy, right? We are very happy. Then after 2 years, we want it to be 5,000. After 10 years, we want to be 10,000. After 15 years, 20,000 not enough. We are not happy even, right? So what happens after job satisfaction? Job satisfaction will lead to what? That could be separate study on it. So that's what I mean. That's the reason, as I didn't say it earlier, that's the reason I'm introducing, or many, not I am introducing, the academicians and researchers introduce the outcome variable. Possibly that may help the industry and society in a way of novel, original contribution to the society and industry. But if you really ask me questions on whether mediating, moderating can contribute to the society, industry, I personally, I see very slim contribution, very little. It could be a model, modification of a model, extension of a model, verification of model, but integration of model, but not really contributing much in the industry. I hope I have answered your queries.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Aminul. Perhaps we could, by your insights, at least I hope these students will be able to understand that when you write this statement of problem, make sure you relate it to the real situation, to the industry,
yes,
or to
true,
the society
true.
at stake.
Yes,
it's not something very general, whereby you see at the end of the day, the resources that you put in is just like for you to obtain your PhD.
Yes, yes. You know, last time I do that always, Prof. When I chair the session, the last question I will ask after internal examiner is done, then I will I'll tell the student, okay, I have the question, this is the last question. Then I will tell the student, I'll ask the student, tell me, why do you think you are entitled to get a PhD degree? And that is the last question I will ask every student. And you will be shocked, you know, to listen to the answers. The recent one that I shared, the student says, Prof, I do not know. The funniest answer that I had, the student told me, Prof, I spent 5 years, spend 10 to 12 hours per day and 5 years. So I said, you think because of that you have to get the PhD? He said, oh, yes. So I said, okay, then answer me a question. If a taxi driver is driving taxi for 30 years, 14 hours a day, can he be given a PhD for taxi driving? So that's the problem we have. Sometimes even PhD students do not know why he should be given a PhD degree. Of course, it is an university degree. Academic contribution has to be there. But for me, it's not enough. to get a PhD, you must have some contribution to the society, to the industry specifically. With the research problem we identify, it is related to an industry, related to the society. So at the end of my research, there should be clear-cut contribution to the society or the industry, the research premise, where the problem is rooted. Just extending a theory, introducing, mediating, moderating, and getting a PhD degree, to me, that is not a good PhD degree, definitely. It's definitely not. This PhD will do nothing to the society and to the country. It is going to be like a selfish work. I get benefit. I get a PhD, put the doctor in front of my name, I get a good job, and I get my salary increase. That's it. The society, the world will not be benefited from me. And that's why I always highlight, if any thesis I read, I see the research problem, the industrial issues not aligned with the theoretical part, I will just say, no, this is not a research problem. You have to rewrite it. Even when I review research paper, I would like to see also the same knowledge gap together with the evidence data from the industry to back you up that what literature is saying is true. You know, when I was doing an MBA at the USM, I remember most of the students were from industry, and one day, quality and productivity management class, there was a professor who was teaching the subject, and suddenly a guy just raised his hand from the MBA class. He said, "Prof, what you are teaching is just stupid. Those things we used to do 20 years back." So what you have in the book, we don't practice it anymore. So we have to say something what can be applicable in the industry now, you know. So when you are doing a PhD, just getting a knowledge from the papers and just putting it there, getting a degree is like that. In a way, we are doing a stupid work because it does not benefit anyone except me. Okay, so any research we do, we have to keep that in mind. That is not only the academic area, it is the industry, the society, the human being should be benefited for my research, the small piece of work that I do as PhD.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Aminul. Perhaps one more silly question I would like to ask. Is it
Can I ask a
possible?
question?
1 minute.
Somebody would like to ask a question. Okay, maybe you can allow her. Yes.
Actually, Prof, I posted a question and it says, how do we find the practical or in society gap? Is it from literature review or from white papers or from the latest media?
Understood your question. The literature gap. Literature gap can be easily found from literature. It can be from book, it can be from published work, it can be research work, is fine. But for PhD academic research, when we say literature review, we mean journal paper, right? A paper that is written based on research. The data evidence from the industry has to be collected from the industry itself. Certain data, you can get it from the Bank Negara, the National Bank. Certain data you can get from IMF, the World Bank. Certain data you can get it from annual report of the companies. So there are many, you know, and there are many syndicated data sources available that gives you data. Okay. So we have to get the data and evidence from the industry from those sources to back you up.
Okay. All right. So if I can get it from the ministries, it's fine.
Yes, it's fine. It's just fine.
Okay,
Ministry is a trustable, credible source.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof.
Welcome. Lawrence, sorry, you had a funny question you said earlier.
Because it's just knowledge sharing. Can someone obtain a PhD without having mediating and moderating variable?
Why not? There are many. There are many. You know, there was one case. Prof, sorry, I cut you off. Sorry. You are saying something. There was one case. A supervisor who is an associate professor, during the Viva session, he said he doesn't believe in moderating and mediating. I don't want to answer that question. But he says for Newton, the equation was E equals mc square, right? E equals mc square. It's Newton, right? E equals mc square. Meaning there is a dependent and they are independent. There is no more moderating, mediating. So he is questioning people like us, saying that, are you genius than Newton? So when the independent, dependent, there's Newton, and now we are going beyond Newton. Are you genius than Newton? I say, no, la. It's not the question of genius or not genius. But Prof, there are areas still available where the studies are not being done extensively. So independent and dependent enough. And say, for example, a study has been done in the developed countries extensively, but it's not done in Malaysia. It's not done in Nigeria or in any other underdeveloped or developing countries. So you may replicate those studies in the new context, in the new research premise. So we can have just dependent and independent, and we can have our PhD degree. I've seen many. And as earlier I was saying, I was interrupted. I was external examiner of a PhD student of Multimedia University, Malaysia. And when I received the thesis, at the beginning, at first, I was really shocked. You know, his framework, 1 independent variable and 3 dependent variable, 4 dependent variable. So actually what he has is a variable, dependent variable and outcome variables. He doesn't have any independent. So the study is about privatization. So he is not looking at factors affecting privatization. A lot of studies being done. But he wanted to concentrate on what is after privatization. So after privatization, he has hypothesized 4 consequences that it can have. You know, that was the PhD thesis. It's just 1 dependent and outcome. And the student is given PhD, right? So certain research cases are like that. The problem is so delicate, you know, and some problems are such that people did not really focus in that way. They did not think like that way. All right. So privatization is study that we read. Most of it, they're looking at factors affecting, contributing to privatization and all that. But he wanted to look at what happens after privatization. So there's something new. So in that case, the certain cases are there whereby you can have just independent variables and dependent, and you can still get a PhD degree.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Because I believe because what I've seen in many universities, plus even in my faculty, it's like a mandatory students when they PhD students, they are mandatory that they must have a framework with mediating and moderating variables. So they themselves will get confused. And I believe because of this, the expansion of knowledge is quite limited because they are forcing themselves to develop a framework which supposed to have moderating and mediating as though that is the precondition for you to obtain a PhD in social science.
Definitely not. As I said earlier, Prof, that when a student reads a paper, one must-read section is suggestion for future research. When you read a paper, look at R square. R square will tell you basically what percentage of factors being captured in the model. If R square is 50%, meaning 50% of the factors had not been captured. So the researcher will say, okay, my research captured only 50%, rest 50%, meaning there are many other factors. So the researcher will say, maybe future researchers may consider to test these factors. So those factors had not been tested. So we take them in the model as new independent variable. So we have established independent variable and we have not tested independent variable with citation. And we can have independent and dependent variable just enough to get a PhD, Prof. It's not necessary, it's not compulsory that we must have mediating and moderating. Definitely not.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I think there are no more questions. Once again, on behalf of University Putra Malaysia, I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank you, Prof, for spending your valuable time in imparting the knowledge to our students as well as academicians. And then for the participants, please contact the organizers if you need a certificate, the video recording as well as the notes which Prof will be sending us soon. So hopefully, hopefully we can have many more webinars like this as part and parcel of our, service to service to humankind, to mankind, and probably you'll be having a face-to-face session in the near future. So thank you very much once again, Prof. So I wish you all the best. May you continue to enjoy success and good health.
I wish you could permit me to ask my question.
I leave it to Prof. Lawrence. I leave it to Prof. Lawrence.
Yes,
Prof. Lawrence allows you.
Okay, Oscar, last question. Is it
yes,
Oscar?
yes. I want Prof to re-echo the R square statement he made to give me a clear understanding.
Okay. Okay. R square, if you are running regression, R square, we call it explainability of the model. We call it explanation power of the model. What percentage of factors been captured? Say, for example, you are looking at job satisfaction and you have selected independent variable like selection, okay, leadership style, working environment, employee-employee relations. Say, for example, these 4. And then when you have run the data, R square become 40%. It means these 4 variable can explain 40% of job satisfaction only. Meaning there are many other variables available that explain 60% of job satisfaction. Okay. Now the next question would be, I know many questions students will ask. That is, they will ask me, what is the standard R square? R square, there is no standard R square to say for this area, this is the standard. We cannot say it. For econometrics analysis modeling, I have seen many finance studies. R square is only 4% and we have completed PhD. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to refer back to the previous researches in the same area that you are doing the research. If previous research says R square was 40%, 30%, you are okay. Say, for example, previous research says R square was 60, 70% and you got 30%, you got into trouble. Okay, so there is no yardstick. You have to compare with the previous researches of the field. All right, so Prof. Jeffrey, Puan Noriati, the UPM, thank you very much for inviting me. And I am thinking of starting my physical tour. I do have package of 2 days package actually, physical. And in 2 days, I cover starting from finding, identifying research gap until writing, publishing paper in 2 days, okay? So in case, if you feel you would like to have a physical session for 2 days, you may contact me and we can do a session, all right? So thank you very much again for inviting me, Prof. Lawrence, and it was great to have you as moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Aminul.
And participants, those of you who have joined, thank you very much and hope to see you some other time. Okay, Prof. Lawrence, I'll leave it to you for conclude the session.
I think we have already concluded. So thank you very much. So we hope to meet in the near future in the coming webinars. Thank you very much, all of y'all, for your kind patience. See you all soon. Bye.
Okay, bye. All right, thank you very much. See you again sometime. We'll see you inshallah. All right, Assalamu alaikum. Prof. Lawrence, can I leave now if you allow me?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Ken.
All right, thank you.